Here I have a 2014 Chevy Equinox. Sorry about the voiceover, but I accidentally deleted this section of the video, so I'm gonna have to do a voiceover. So this car got dropped off because I had a check engine light and there was a few drivability issues, stalling, stumbling, like it wanted to turn off, and the more the owner drove, the worse it got. He started to notice bad fuel or gas mileage. Another big issue was when you turn the key off, the engine would stay running for a good 2 or 3 seconds. So initially, after looking at the car, I did experience everything that the owner was telling me about, especially the turning off the key and the engine stays running. There was a code for exhaust, camshaft, solenoid, but I didn't really want to worry about that at this moment because that type of code is not going to cause the engine to continue to run after you take the key out. But what is super common on these things is a high pressure fuel pump. So I pulled the dipstick out, smelled the oil, and of course it smelled like gasoline. So what happens here is the high pressure fuel pump fails and it allows the fuel to be mixed with the oil, which contaminates all of your oil and it has to be changed out. At that point, there's also gasoline making its way into your PCV system, which ends up in the cylinders, and that's what causes the engine to continue to run even though you take your key out for a good 2 or 3 seconds. After looking at the car for a little bit of time, I diagnosed a bad high pressure fuel pump. It's been about a week and here we are with the new part, ready to replace this and hopefully get this vehicle fixed. A few days later and we have this Chevy back in the garage. We have a brand new high pressure fuel pump for it sitting right there in the box, OEM part. I got the pump off of the engine. Now when I took it off initially, like this spring right here was completely dry, so I tried to push in the spring, which is just a plunger, and then you could see how the spring got wet. So basically this is how, well, I'm assuming this is how fuel makes its way into the oil, is because there's some sort of seal right here that this plunger rides on, and it has to be compromised because I pushed it in once and you can see the spring got wet. So it's letting fuel pass this seal when it shouldn't be coming into this area, which in turn makes its way into the oil. Here goes the new pump, and the new pump does come with a brand new gasket. You can see here goes the original gasket that I pulled off, so that's nice that it came with the gasket. Here's a part number for anyone who's wondering. You could go ahead and pause the video right there, take a screenshot or whatever. And I don't think it's necessary, but it is recommended to replace this small line whenever you replace a pump. It's this line right here. You have to loosen it and basically remove it anyway in order to get out the original pump. So basically you're pretty much taking it off anyway. Why not replace it, right? And it doesn't even cost a lot. So let's get this one ready. Go ahead, pop it on the engine. Do a little bit of cleaning right here first. New pump is installed, new hardline is installed, everything is torqued down nice and tight how it should be. At this point I'm gonna go ahead and put the air box back on the engine. We'll prime up the fuel system, basically just turning the key a few times, come out here, check for leaks. If we don't have any, we'll start the engine up and then come back and check for leaks once again. I'm not going to put the covers on it just yet because I want to verify that we don't have any leaks. Once everything looks good, no more leaks, then I'll take the harness back apart and put the cover back on this. So I left the actual engine cover off, but I put the air intake box back on it. Everything's tightened down, the clamps. I already primed the fuel pump once, I heard it turn on. I don't see any initial leaks right now, but now we have to attempt to start the engine, quickly come out here and verify we don't have any leaks at the high pressure fuel pump. And so here goes our first startup. Not sure if it'll turn on. There goes the fuel pump again. Alright, so I turned the key off right before it did start up because I thought it wasn't going to start. So this thing has like that automatic cranking thing, so let's see if it'll start up. You know what, before we start it, let's go check that high pressure fuel pump since it did get some fuel in it now. Really good, I don't see anything dripping. Alright, let's go out there and check it. Alright, nice, I don't see any leaks. I've gone ahead and cleared the check engine light, and now I'm just looking at the fuel trims. You can still see that it says it's subtracting fuel. You got to keep in mind that the engine oil is completely saturated with fuel. First of all, it turns on right away as soon as you turn the key. Second of all, the main issue we were having before, let's go ahead and shut the engine off. It shut off instantly. The engine did not stay running for like 3 seconds like it did before with the bad high pressure fuel pump on it. So that alone is already an improvement. You could tell that there was definitely a issue with that fuel pump, and I'm really glad that I was able to see it actually leaking while I took the fuel pump off of the engine, and I can see gasoline coming right past that seal where the spring is at. Let's try it again one more time. Let's turn it off. Let me get some light here. Instant, turns off instantly, just how it should. That's great. That's what I like to see. So this thing definitely smells like fuel, and look how black this thing is. I don't know, she said she had an oil change not so long ago. Doesn't really look like it. Don't know what happened here, but it looks like my oil container has a hole in it for some reason. It's cracked right there. You see I got a big mess all over the place. So now I'm trying to empty it out, and looks like I'm gonna have to buy a new one. So this oil that came out is blacker than black, okay? The absence of light. And also another thing I noticed is the viscosity. It doesn't flow like oil, it flows like water does. So you can tell it's extremely watered down from the fuel that's been dumping into it. But we are finally giving the Chevy a new hope. It's on its way to rehab. I went ahead and picked up a new oil drain pan. As you can tell, the bottom of it's cracked, that's why it's leaking. This right here has been melted from a muffler, so it has its battle scars, and it's has a well-deserved rest time now. So let's have a moment of silence for the oil pan. That's long enough. Got this Pontiac G6 in the garage. It had a slight overheating issue. The radiator, it's clear to say that the radiator has a hole in it, so, and it's not from this accident because that happened years ago. This is something that just randomly popped up, I guess. So we are changing the overflow tank because I saw it leaking back there too, so there has to be some sort of crack. So it was cheap enough, just go ahead, change it. We have a new radiator for it, and also he got an ABS light on, and I saw that this front right wheel was dropping out, so we're gonna go ahead and replace the sensor, seeing that the wheel bearings on this car are brand new because I replaced them about a month ago. This is that Pontiac G6, the one we did front wheel bearings, front brakes, front calipers, everything. So now let's go ahead and take care of this spider. But it just seems like every time I'm doing one of these jobs, the car's always crashed. Same thing on the Cobalt I did. This bash bar was just completely bent in like that, hitting the condenser. You can see that back there. It's just same old story over and over. And talk about having water in your headlights. What is this, a Mercedes? I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. Took off a lot of things to get the radiator out. Radiator is pretty much loose at this point. Just have to disconnect the two trans lines going to it, but that's about it. Then I'm gonna try to figure out how to get this thing out of here with this brace being bent inward like that. I've already gone ahead and replaced the ABS sensor, got that all connected, so that's all set. Tomorrow I'll pop the wheel back on it and I could focus on this radiator. So it's the next day, and I think I just figured out why the radiator just randomly busted. So here goes the cooling fans. This one still seems to be intact. It all makes sense now. I still don't know how I'm gonna get this out of here. Alright, so I got the fan out. You can see how this piece is separated, and that piece of plastic is broken right there. Luckily, AutoZone has one. I have to drive a little bit, but at least we could get one. It's gonna be a dormant part. Surprise, surprise, right? But it is what it is. You're in a pinch, you got no other choice. Hey, I just found out your radiator fan is bad. That also needs to get replaced. And you know, the first thing they say is, well, how fast can we get one? Because I need the car to go to work. And it's like the car's like taken apart in pieces. And you know, it just sucks. Sometimes people need to understand that things go sideways, and you may have to get an Uber to go to work one day or two, or get a friend to borrow you a car, or give you a ride or something, you know. But no, that's never an option. Everybody always just, you know, fix it fast, you know. So anyways, I end up pulling the fan assembly from the front right here. I had to move a few things around, basically take off the throttle body. You can see it sitting right there. This whole wire harness loom, detach it from any place that I could find just to kind of tuck it out of the way. I took all these wires that run alongside right here, Got those out of the way. These are for the crash sensors. So I even removed the sensors for crash impact. They go right there, and I was able to pull the whole harness, including where the ground strap goes, move all of that out the side. I had just enough clearance to get the fan out from this side, kind of angle it and just pull it up from here. It really sucks because, you know, it's intended to come out the front right here, and it's just so much easier to do it this way. Even though the crash beam is bent, a lot of you would say, well, just cut it off, right? It serves its purpose. These things are here for a reason, okay? Even though it's bent, it still has its purpose. Without that there, any little bump to this car is gonna start damaging like the condenser, the new radiator. So something's better than nothing. It just baffles me on why they welded this crap in instead of just bolting it in, but whatever. So getting the fan assembly out of the way looks like it was the key to getting this radiator out, because now I found that this thing's gonna come out now. We could see where it's leaking, which is right in this area, and surprise surprise, this is where this fan let loose, right here. Basically, this is the effect, that is the cause. So sure, you could put a new radiator in it, but if you don't fix this, it's gonna happen again. So I'm about to run out to AutoZone and get a new fan assembly. I'm just can't deal with this anymore. Look at this shit. So I'm putting on the radiator, right? I get it in here, look what I notice. I'm like, huh, what's this? This came from Rock Auto, okay? Someone came at this thing with some sort of a grinder, cutoff wheel, sawzall, I don't freaking know. It looks like they went through this bar, which really isn't an issue because there's no coolant that goes through this top layer, at least I don't think so. And it looks like they stopped right before they get to the first actual passageway of where coolant would pass through. That is crazy, but I feel like I have to somehow try to pressure test this before I go through all the trouble putting it on. Alright, so I put a cap on the lower port down there. You can see that yellow cap. On this side, I'm just going to use my Astro coolant pressure tester. And I'm using this cone adapter, which is the first time I ever used this, but it was inside the kit. I'm just trying to push it inside of the upper radiator hose spot on the radiator. And I already pumped it up. I got up, I didn't put a lot, I probably put like 8 psi inside of here, but it wasn't dropping pressure. I'm just going to use some soapy water right here and spray this down while I do the test one more time. I'm using this hand to hold on this thing, otherwise it wants to pop off. You could see we have some pressure inside of the radiator, and I've already sprayed it with soapy water. Hopefully you could see that right there, and thankfully I don't see any bubbles coming out. So even though some idiot cut through this radiator with a grinder or something, it looks like it's still sealing because they didn't go low enough to hit the very first passageway for the coolant. So I'm gonna send it. It's gonna work. We're just gonna leave it in the car. Isn't this crazy? It's the type of crap you have to deal with. I've got the radiator in place. I've got the condenser attached to it, and it's bolted down where it goes. One right there, one right there. So these two are both mated together now, and now it's time to try to fit in the new fans. And what I did is I grabbed this piece of cardboard and I slid it in from the top right here so that we have something protecting the radiator, because this is not the way this is normally supposed to go. It's actually very tight trying to get the fans in and out of here, and I don't want to risk, or I'm trying to minimize the chance of damaging the new radiator when we install the fan. So this cardboard helps that. It's just a little bit of buffer. Now I know I mentioned we were going to get a dormant part because that's what they had on their website, and when I went to AutoZone, this is what they pulled up. They said, oh, we have a Duralast in stock, even though their website said they had a dormant in stock. So I checked the part numbers, and the part numbers are exactly the same minus the DL, and I'm assuming that stands for Duralast. But besides the DL, the rest of it, same exact part number. It's like the more I deal with this, I'm really starting to think that, yeah, Duralast is just rebranded dormant stuff, which sucks because I really don't like dormant crap, and I always thought Duralast was slightly better than dormant. But these past few days, I've just been seeing the same thing over and over, where it's Duralast in a dormant box or vice versa. The part numbers are matching up, and I don't know, it's crazy. Whatever, we're just gonna go ahead and get the fans, put them on. So I took the new fans out of the box, and so far I don't see any cuts in them with a grinder,
or Sawzall. One thing you notice right off the bat is the quality. You could definitely tell this is a cheaper part than the original stuff. The plastic just looks cheaper. Yeah, it is what it is, right? It's just how things are nowadays. Alright, so I just about got the fan in there, you can see. And I can now go ahead and pull out the cardboard. Now I'm not gonna lie to you, this is the second time I have to put the fan in. Why? Because the first time my dumbass put the fan in upside down. That's right. You see how the big fan is on the driver's side, little fan on the passenger side? Well, tell me why I go through the trouble and the hassle of trying to fit this in there. It's so freaking tight. It's hard. You're squeezing it in, only to get it all the way in place and then realize the tabs don't line up because I had the fan in upside down. I was kicking myself in the head. More importantly, I pulled out the fan as carefully as I can and I inspected the radiator. Thankfully, I didn't see any damage. So, put the cardboard back on it, flip the fans around, put them in the correct way this time. Talking about making your job harder than it has to be, right? Jeez Louise. Anyway, it's in. Another thing I noticed is I went ahead and put a piece of cardboard right here while I was doing all of this, because this rebar is actually, and by that I mean reinforcement bar, is actually already pressing into the condenser. It's just how it is because of the accident. So it's not like, oh, it was a hair away. No, it actually is pushing into the condenser, and the condenser just happened to not break. So it's still holding Freon. So I knew I was going to be messing with this and I didn't want to put any more stress on it, so I put a piece of cardboard in between the two pieces for now. So I just got a call from the girl that has that 2000 Corolla, the black one, the one that I just finished working on. I had in one of my previous videos, I believe. You know, she calls me, she's like, hey, I was on the expressway and I was on the shoulder and my steering wheel doesn't feel right and my wheels aren't moving right. I'm like, that doesn't help me. I don't understand what your problem is. What's going on, or what's going on with the car? Just the wheels aren't moving right. And let me add that she sounded like she was super high. At that point, I was like, you know what, this conversation is going nowhere. This lady does not know what she's talking about. She gave me zero information in the 2 minutes that she was on the phone. Oh, I want to know if you could come out and look at my car over here on the side of the expressway. No. Get it towed over here and then I'll look at it. Other than that, I can't help you. You know, it just pisses me off when you're calling me, you're high. You can't even give me a clue. You know, most people say, hey, my brake pedal went all the way to the floor. Hey, my car is overheating. My power steering stopped working. Something, some information. But no, I got absolutely nothing out of her. I was like, at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm done. You know what? Get your car towed over here if you want me to look at it, because clearly you're useless at this point, and it's just so frustrating. I want to say 8 out of 10 cars that come here smell like weed inside of them, and it's whatever. That's just another rant for another day. So I got everything on the fan side connected. I got all the wiring harnesses back where they belong. I'm gonna go ahead and start putting all this stuff back together for the crash or the airbag sensors right here in front. Put the throttle body back on it, and I gave the throttle body a quick cleaning. Nothing crazy, just sprayed both sides with some brake parts cleaner and wiped it down. There was a ton of carbon inside of here, so that's all clean. I just got a call back from that girl with the Corolla, and she said, hey, the car will be towed to you in like 30 minutes. Can you please look at my car? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I told you to tow it over here so I could look at it, but I can't look at it today. Why? Because it's raining outside. And I got 3 other cars here. I cannot just put your car in front of everyone else's that's been waiting just because everyone needs their car back. You know what I mean? It's just how it is. So she didn't like that. She didn't like that I told her I'm not going to be able to look at it today. What do you want me to do? So I got the system filled up with brand new Dexcool, as you can see. I don't see anything dripping. Everything's connected. Got the battery reconnected. So let's go ahead, start it up, let it warm up, and just make sure everything's good. The car came off of its high idle, so I turned on the AC. Yeah, the AC should be on. So let's go see if the fans turned on. They are on, both of them. So the new issue I'm having is I can't get the radiator mounts to go on here. The radiator needs to come out much further in order for it to fall inside of this opening right here, and then we can line up up top where you put the bolt, and it just isn't going to happen. The reason why I worked with the old one is because that old radiator was slightly bent in a V shape also, so it was able to retain or obviously stay inside of its mounts. But since the new radiator is pretty much straight, we can't get this in. This whole thing has to come forward more, but we can't bring it forward because if I do, I'm going to end up puncturing the condenser. So I hope that makes sense. So I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do here. Might have to start cutting and welding some stuff just to make it work. And by the way, if anyone's wondering, yes, the bill that I initially quoted to do this job definitely went up because of all this having to deal with this and now having to deal with this. Ooh, piece of candy. So I've cut the bracket in half. You can see I got that piece on top of the radiator. Here goes the other half, and I bent it into the shape that I want it to be. So basically I'm just going to weld them both together right there at that L shape, and then it's going to get the bolt in here, and that's how it's going to work. Alright, so I'm all done with this bracket right here. You can see it's all welded together. I did it on the back side. It's hard to see, but it is welded together nice and solid, and there's still a little bit of movement, as you can see. So it's going to allow the radiator and all this stuff to move a little bit, but without bouncing around way too much, because that'll cause stuff to start breaking over time. So I'm going to grab the other bracket, cut it in half, and do the same exact thing. And there we have it. One bracket all welded together, and the other one to match it. So these things are all set. I'm not going to mess around with these brackets anymore. They are now doing their job, and they stop the radiator from bouncing around. I think I'm done for tonight. It's probably like 6:30 p.m. and I'm just tired of messing with this piece of crap. So I'm putting together the headlight on this Pontiac. First thing I notice is the green crusties inside of the connector harness. So the headlights are in place, and I need to put on this bumper absorber, whatever you want to call it, impact absorber. But since it's all destroyed, it's very difficult to keep it in place. It keeps wanting to fall off, so I just use some zip ties here to hold it in place, and that should do the trick, enough for me to get the bumper back on the car. So I've had a busy day today with people randomly showing up because their car needs to be fixed, you know, without any notice. It's Sunday, it's like 5 p.m. and I finally got this piece of crap all put back together. See, bumper's on, everything is buttoned up on the bottom the best I can. It's extremely difficult to get cars that have been crashed back together and everything fitting decent because, well, everything's wrecked, you know what I mean? So I think it fits pretty good. It's been having the same amount of coolant in it since yesterday. Came out here this morning and checked it, not a single drip of anything on the ground. So I went ahead and topped it off, just gave it a little bit more coolant. But this thing is all set. It's 100% ready to go. Like I said, I already installed the new speed sensor or ABS sensor on the front right side. I just finished taking out this Pontiac for a test drive, mainly to look at the ABS sensor. And the one I'm focused on is the front right, which is the top blue one. You can see it's matching the rear right. We have no more dropouts like we had before. It was the harness itself because the wheel bearing on the car was already new, so I knew it wasn't that. And it looks like changing the harness was the right call because the data seems to match on all of them now. Good, no more dropouts. As far as the heat, it's up to temperature, not overheating. We got nice, good hot air blowing out the vents. And that's it. I already confirmed that the cooling fans work and everything turns on. So the owner can come pick up his car. This one's all set. So it's like a week later. This is that Toyota I was just talking about. The person who called me, you know, she sounded like she was really high, which she always sounds like she's really high. And whenever you see one of these on someone's key, kind of tells you what kind of person they are. Some people have bottle openers on their keys. Other people have these things. But this is it. This is the one that we just did the brakes, all the rear suspension. We did the inside and the outside door handle. So this one and that one right there, everything still works. Apparently she went into a ditch and tow truck had to pull it out of the ditch. So there was some shielding underneath the engine that was dragging on the floor. I had to cut that off because it was destroyed. And I took it out for a test drive, and it definitely sounds like we have a damaged wheel bearing. And she said they did kind of grab it from this wheel over here, like hook on it, in order to pull the car out of the ditch. So I jacked the car up and I just tried to spin the wheel by hand, like pushing a lot of pressure on the wheel bearing as I turn it, and it felt real, I don't know what to call it, like gritty. You know, it just felt like it wasn't a smooth bearing. Did the same thing on that side. That's the side we also put a brand new wheel bearing on, and it still feels good. I'm gonna go ahead and take this apart. I'm like 95% certain it needs a new wheel bearing. And here we go. Yeah, I was not joking when I said this thing sounded horrible while driving. So here's what I was talking about earlier when I had the front end jacked up and I put both of my hands on the wheel and I'm just, you know, turning the wheel back and forth and feeling for a bad wheel bearing. So basically you're applying inward pressure to the wheel bearing, and just like I'm doing now. And if I turn this, I'm not so much with the wheel on the car, I'm not so much listening for noise, I'm feeling for noise. So good inward pressure with my hand, and I could feel all the bad spots in the wheel bearing, all that grittiness. You know, it just feels like it's full of sand inside of there. It doesn't feel good. And if you go ahead and try the other side of the car, which should be a known good if you're testing a car that only has one bad wheel bearing, you will feel a difference. New wheel bearing is installed. Let's go ahead and spin it. Nice and smooth, no crazy noise like we had before. Unfortunately, the owner could not get a hold of new seals, so the front seal right there and the one that goes back there, I just was very careful when removing them, trying not to damage them, and I was able to put them on. They look pretty good, so hopefully no issues. But it's all we could do in such a short notice because none of this was planned. She just stopped by today. You know, I didn't schedule this or anything like that. It sounds pretty good. Everything's in and everything's ready to go. Ready to pop the CV shaft back in it. And I guess I'll just take it out for a test drive once I'm done. So that's it for this Corolla. All the wheel bearing noise is gone. This piece of crap is all set. Well, once in a while I get a nice car here in the garage. Those are 26s. The Tahoe, I think it's like a 2017. I know it's here for an oil change, and there's a small gasket right next to the oil filter housing. I think it goes for the oil cooler, but this car doesn't have an oil cooler, so they just kind of put like a block off plate, I suppose, and that little gasket is leaking, so I have to do that. And I can't get in the garage because this piece of crap Pontiac is in the garage, so it has to get done. And as you can see, it's raining today, so I'll be working out in the rain, which sucks. So I got the oil out of the truck, got the old oil filter off of it and a new filter on it. You know how it is when you're working in the rain and at first you give it crap, it kind of upsets you, you're getting wet, right? But then you get to a certain point where you're just so wet that you just don't care anymore. So here goes the oil filter right there. That's the new oil filter on it. And this is the thing I was talking about. Right here, there's a small gasket behind it and this thing is leaking. I already went ahead and wiped it down with a rag. That's why it looks kind of clean, but it was full of oil initially. So let me go ahead and get this off of here and we'll put the new gasket on it. So I've gone ahead and cleaned up this cap right here, hit it with some brake parts cleaner and a wire brush, got it looking all nice and good. And there we have it. Nice, clean. Let's find out what happens. We'll put the oil in it. Damn, this guy's balling. So he just had the rims put on because he just told me. He just got his windows tinted because I could see the sticker over all the window switches saying to not lower the windows. And sounds back here. That stimulus check is going a long way, huh? Nah, it'll be fine.